One step forward, 10 steps back. A perfect way to describe what has been a very frustrating, a deflating, and honestly, a rant-worthy entire 162 of a Metropolitan season. How we doing, everybody? It's your guy, Tyler Ward here, known as Wardy, and we have a lot to break down in our latest Mets post-game show presented by our amazing sponsors at SeatGeek. Make sure to utilize our promo code. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase with our promo code Wardy10, as well as Moomoo, the official trading platform of the New York Mets that we will get into a little bit later. Folks, I have so much to say here, it's not even funny. I can sit here and scream my absolute head off for the next 40 minutes, but I know that is not going to be enough. We need to break down in depth the numbers of just how putrid this Mets rotation has been outside the kids and Noah McLean and Jonathan. Because the one commonality is that if your name is David Pearson, if your name is Kodai Senga, if your name is Sean Manaea, if your name is Clay Holmes, if you are a veteran in this Mets rotation, you have provided little to no reliability down the stretch when the Mets have needed to most. The Mets roll over and die as a surprise absolutely nobody in the series finale this Sunday, that being August 31st, 2025, to wrap up the month of August. A Mets team that entered tonight's game with a .377 batting average with runners in scoring position for the calendar month of August, far and away the best in baseball, had nothing to do, had nothing to show against Sandy Alcantara and this Miami Marlins team. Sandy diced up this Mets team just like he did earlier this year. Doesn't matter if he has a 6 ERA or a 7 ERA, step right up and meet the Mets because we know it's going to be easy pickings. Outside the Philadelphia Phillies series, in which the Mets are just the Phillies' father for one reason or another, there is nothing, not a single thing to boast about as a Mets fan and what has been incompetence for the past 2+ months of baseball. And here we are yet again having to now rely on a starter who's unproven, who has yet to make his major league debut. Why? Because David Stearns and others decide to sit on their hands until it's too little too late. I get it. Brandon Sproat has not really looked all that great until the month of July, but here's the thing. It's September tomorrow. It's been 2 months since Brandon Sproat has finally started to look stellar at the AAA level, yet that wasn't enough. 3+ weeks ago, when we're seeing Frankie Montas horrendous, a man that should be boxed out of the Mets rotation, and he was days after that putrid start. 3 weeks to a month ago, we were saying, is it time for Brandon Sproat to get the call? Is it time then? Is it time now? Folks, there's no time left. How much longer do we have to wait? The Mets have technically until the end of the day to make Brandon Sproat active if he's eligible for playoffs. At least that's what I initially thought. However, Tim Healy, who used to do a great job covering the Mets on the beat, now he covers the Red Sox, did come out with a report a couple days ago which states as long as the player is actively in the organization, even if they're not on the 40-man, they will be eligible for postseason play. That may go in hand with a player having to be placed on the 60-day injured list, so we will wait and see. The rosters expand tomorrow. The Mets can add a position player and a pitcher, and they're looking to add one more because Ronnie Mauricio's ass is 1,000% getting sent down. He has brought nothing to this Mets team for weeks on end. Why keep him up and just hurt and waste his development? No, what you do here is you make the proper decision. So we're not going to sit here and break down what went wrong for the Mets and this 5-1 loss. You know what went wrong with the Mets in this 5-1 loss. The Mets did not show up offensively on a Sunday that they typically don't to begin the season and all throughout the course of the season, mind you. Their pitching yet again comes back to bite them in the you know what. If your name is not Noah McLean or Jonathan, starters have a combined 4 total starts at the major league level. There is no consistency, no reliability, nothing, nada from this Mets rotation whatsoever. I'm not holding back. I have so much to say, so I apologize if I'm hesitant from getting to anyone's comments. Please know it's not personal. I just have a lot that I need to unleash right here, right now. Because in a game, an opportunity, a series rather, where the Mets had prime focus, prime opportunity to go in and take 3 out of 4 against the Miami Marlins. You swept the Philadelphia Phillies at home. You curb stomped them, the best team in the NL East, showing them that you are their father. Yet you come out and give us this. You give up 5+ runs every single night to the Miami Marlins. You give up 8 unearned runs to the Marlins in a 4-game set. Your defense is putrid. Your offense is Jekyll and Hyde. And you, my friends, are now just 9 games above 500. And as we take a look at what that means for this Mets team being 9 games above 500, what it means is that they're just 4 games ahead of the Cincinnati Reds in that final wildcard spot. They're still 6, if not 6.5 games out behind the Philadelphia Phillies at first again, so we're right back to square one for anyone that has aspirations on potentially still winning this division. It doesn't feel likely, even if the Mets win 9 of their next 10 games in their road trip beginning in Detroit, that I'm not excited to talk about at all for a Mets team that's north of 10 games below 500 on the road this year. Even that is not a lock to suggest that they would win the division if everything went right. And when you look at this Mets team, what do we have to say? There is nothing consistent about this club. We know this. I'm not going to beat this dead horse. If you follow the club all year long, you know exactly where they stand. Consistency is something that they don't know if it smacked them across the face. Full power slap if you know, you know. Instead, what do we have? An offense that unfortunately was not able to best a Marlins and Sandy Alcantara today after they were down 5 runs in the first couple innings of the ballgame. It's almost like when you don't have competent starting pitching, it's going to be deflating for the offense. It's almost like an offense that rallied 6 runs down yesterday still wasn't enough for this team because, again, scoring 8 runs should guarantee you a win. Not in the case of the Mets yesterday as they still faltered 11-8. Fast forward a day later, Mets offense nowhere to be seen. Mark Vientos gets a little upset that Sandy Alcantara pitches inside of him. I thought that was honestly just a moment for the sake of trying to get a spark going. Bench is clear just for the sake of benches clearing. It doesn't mean anything in the end. Nothing matters from this series loss, but what does matter is the repercussions of the Mets now losing 3 out of 4 to the Miami Marlins. Not only are they now within decent reach of the Reds when they're going to play Cincinnati next weekend, mind you, to really dictate who's going to likely win that wild card between the two, but it comes down to the rotation configuration. The same Mets rotation that carried this Mets team that we saw in their 21 game above 500 stretch in the first half. What do we say then is what we're saying now. Their pitching is exceeding expectations. As soon as that pitching starts to get caught up to reality, so will this Mets team. The difference is, as the months went on, the Mets were the worst team in baseball with runners in scoring position. They had the worst record in baseball, only trailing teams like the Rockies and the Yankees for a month and a half, 2-month stretch beginning in early June up until really the past 2.5 weeks now. The Mets now decide, we're going to be competent. We're going to hit with runners in scoring position. We're going to be better than every team in baseball. But that in itself only will take you so far when you decide to roll over and die, pitching or not, against the Miami Marlins on a Sunday. I get it, Sandy had it, but I also know that Sandy's been vulnerable. He's been very vulnerable with a lot of teams this year, but apparently for the Mets, they just don't know how to hit, apparently Cy Young here on the mound for Miami. So let's get into this. Let's break down everything that went wrong for this Mets team today. We're not doing this any by any. We're not doing this pitch by pitch. None of that nonsense. I'm going to summarize what went wrong for Kodai Senga today, but I assure you guys it is headlined by one thing and one thing only, and that is confidence. Kodai Senga does not have the confidence at all. The man coming back from his injury has not been the same. And this is what we said to ourselves as Mets fans in the case of Kodai Senga, that when he first went down with injury, oh no, we know how meticulous he is when it comes to injuries. We know that this could be a slow roll for him. When Senga's healthy and right, he's brilliant. What have we seen over the past month and a half? A starter now with just under a 6 ERA. That is not only dog water, this is a starter that should not be in the Mets rotation. We are quickly approaching, if not already there, and Billy Epler, if you know, Phantom IL level frustration with Kodai Senga than anything else right now. Senga does not deserve to be pitching this rotation every 4th, 5th, 6th day. Miss me with the nonsense on the extra rest, because extra rest clearly was not enough for you, Kodai. You go a 1-2-3 second inning, you strike out the side. What do you effing do? What do you do? Your batting practice. Why are you batting practice, Kodai Senga? It's not only because of the lack of confidence, it's because you, my friend, are not getting swing and misses with your ghost fork out of the zone. What does that mean? When you're not getting people to bite on the ghost fork when they usually shouldn't to begin with, because again, clearly out of the zone. It's just been a nasty, deceptive pitch that a lot of people haven't been able to handle. Now they're handling it. Now they're understanding what you're throwing. And when you throw meatballs of fastballs middle, what do you think's going to happen? So Kodai Senga, if you guys want to get a grip and idea as to what was his demise in this one today, it was a lack of confidence, a lack of comfortability. Throwing more balls than strikes is what it felt like throughout the vast majority of this one, and not getting the bite on your prototypical ghost fork, your huge put-out pitch, the pitch that carries you as a starter. When you don't have that working, you have nothing working. So yes, the Mets are in a massive problem when it comes to their reliability. As I stated in the beginning of the show, I'll say it again. David Peterson, over his past 13 starts, has a well over 5 ERA. Kodai Senga, since returning back from injury this year, has a north of a 6 ERA. Clay Holmes has been Mr. Inconsistent, we know. Yes, he might give you a 5, but he's a 5 and dive, so you're not getting length. Then when you look at other aspects of this rotation, Sean Manaea has a loose body and his elbow, but he's just ready to have that surgery in the offseason. Never had a proper spring training at all this year, so no one should be surprised that he himself does not have the answers that second, let alone third turn or in the the order. It is an absolute shame and disgusting that the Mets are so reliant on their young, promising arms right now, but they have to be if they want to stand any chance of not only making postseason play, but doing something along with it. Brandon Waddell, thank you so much for your service. When no one was going to step up, Brandon Waddell stepped up and ate 4.1 gorgeous innings for the Mets, just like what we saw a couple days ago there in the Mets and Kevin Herget. He ate innings, just like what we saw a couple days ago as well there. Even yesterday in the Mets call-up, and Chris Davinsky went 2+, 3 scoreless innings for you. The day before that, Jose Castillo goes 2+ strong innings of work. We will see Waddell DFA'd as we get into the next game prior to Tuesday's matchup there. We know that in the case of this Mets team right now or tomorrow, whenever the Mets next game is, we understand that they're going to have a lot of guys that are constantly coming in and then popped out right away in the bullpen. They're coming in to eat innings, and I appreciate Brandon Waddell doing something that Kodai Senga's incompetent ass simply couldn't do today. No, I'm not holding back, and the reason why I'm not holding back is because Kodai Senga is a man that the Mets have worked their rotation around since they signed him in 2023. They have been so meticulous in Senga, as he has been himself, that they've done everything in their power to get Kodai right, okay? So whether Kodai has a tight hammy still or something needs to change here. And as of now, you cannot say with a straight face as a Mets fan that, oh yeah, Kodai Senga should find himself staying in this Mets rotation. This man is so unreliable. He looks no different, even worse of a batting practice than what we saw him do as he got rushed up to playoffs last year when he looked good initially, and then was batting practice that we saw in that Phillies game and the Dodgers games. We knew that Kodai Senga was going to be not a reliability, but a liability. And what we're seeing now on August 31st, 2025 is that Kodai's either hurt or he just doesn't have it. Either way, this man cannot be in the rotation the next turn in the order. You can't justify it. Kodai is slated to pitch for this Mets team Sunday, next weekend. That belongs to Brandon Sproat. We're done with this, okay? Brandon Sproat needs to get the call. The fact that he hasn't gotten the call now is an absolute joke. The Mets threw Brandon Sproat in a reliever role, mind you, and his past outing a couple days ago, he got rocked, and they said, okay, we're going to go put you back in as a starter yesterday. What does Brandon Sproat do yesterday, everybody, that we're going to break down at great length? Oh, yeah, he just casually has his best start now of all of his year in AAA Syracuse. He goes 7 innings of 91 pitch ball, topping out 99 on the gun, 3 hits allowed, 2 walks, 0 earned runs, 9 strikeouts, a 1.74 ERA over his past 10 starts. But no, clearly not enough to get the call. Miss me with that nonsense. It is about time you consider the kids, because whether you like it or not, whether you hate the idea of relying on young and experienced pitchers or not, the reality is as follows. The Mets don't have any other options. They have no time to waste. This was exactly what we feared north of 2 months ago when the Mets decided not to call Manoah McLain, not to move Jonathan up to AAA yet, not to move Brandon Sproat up to the major league level yet, because they said, let's go with the Brandon Waddells, let's go with the Huasca Brosmans, let's go with the Blake Tidwells, let's go with all these schmucks to eat a couple innings for you when they were not getting the job done. And this is not a complete slight on Waddell as he was nailed today, but the point stands. The Mets have wasted away so many games this season that otherwise maybe would have been different had they just considered their in-house options a little bit sooner. And the David Stearns counter is as follows. Oh, well, here's the thing. If we call him up now and he eats these innings, then okay, we burn his first year of his contract. I don't give a rat's you-know-what. You're in a win-now stage. Who cares about burning your first year of a contract from going from going from 6 years of control for a player to 5? No one cares. What we care about is winning, and what we care about is putting the best players out there. As Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns stated themselves, and this cannot be underestimated, everybody. This cannot be understated, rather. They stated this with the media, that they're going to be on a field-by-field basis with this rotation. The Mets are going to put whoever they feel are the best options in this rotation. And here's the thing, everybody. As of now, as we enter the month of September, the Mets' 3 best starter options are all players that did not start the year with this Mets team. One was in AA, 2 were in AA actually, because McLain started there, and 1 was in AAA already in Brandon Sproat. You cannot say with a straight face that Sean Manaea, David Pearson, because he's been dog water over his past not only month of baseball, but past 13 starts in total. When you look at basically every veteran that you've relied on all season long in this rotation, they're not here to give you a chance to say, okay, we're going to actually go out and win. Okay, we're going to go out and get a rock solid 4, 5, 6 innings out of. You're lucky if you get 4 from these schmucks. Sometimes you get 5, but it isn't enough. The Mets need to make a move here. It's long overdue. The fact that we have talked about this for a month and it hasn't happened, but it will inevitably happen in the coming days, tells you exactly my point. They're waiting way too long until we literally reach the end of August, where again, if you are not on the 40-man, you can't be eligible for postseason play unless there's certain exceptions. I believe Brandon Sproat has one of them because he's been in the organization already. Again, don't quote me, folks, but from my understanding, per Tim Healy, does a great job. Used to be on the beat for the Mets, now with the Red Sox. He stayed a couple days ago on X. That reminder, everybody, all Brandon Sproat needs to be is in the organization to be called up there for postseason play. So whether Sproat officially gets the call later on today, whether it's sometime tomorrow with the rosters expand, this has to inevitably happen, okay? Because the reason as it hasn't happened yet has not been justifiable enough. Before you could have said, okay, Brandon Sproat hasn't looked good consistently. No, Brandon Sproat has had a sub-2 ERA over his past 10 starts in AAA Syracuse. I'm sorry, how much more of an example do you need if you're David Stearns at this Mets team? And just look at the offense. Again, they rolled over and died today. Thank you guys for the donations, for the likes and the subscriptions. As you guys chime in, I really do appreciate that. I'm going to get a Casey's $10 highlight here in just a second. But like I said, this is not a typical post-game show. I'm not holding anything back. I have a lot to say on this, and we have a lot to break down in regards to Brandon Sproat, Kodai Senga, what's going wrong with this rotation, how can they make things better, and what are the players that the Mets are likely to choose for as they expand the rosters tomorrow with the month of September beginning. This is how the offense ended, everybody. Again, a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of nada. The boys did not show up, and here's the thing. The boys have showed up so much lately with the bats that while I'm pissed off to see them not do enough against Sandy here, in that same breath, I say to myself, you know what? They shouldn't have to work down 5, 6 runs on a consistent basis against the Miami Marlins at the same time. So yes, share your criticisms with the lab today, not getting enough done. Only 5 hits in this one. Horrendous with regards to scoring position. They were 0 for 7, left 7 on base. This was after they left 10 on base and went 2 for 12 with runners in scoring position yesterday. But it was an easier bullet to bite yesterday because the Mets still managed to score 8 runs. What was most frustrating with the Mets yesterday is that they scored 8 runs, allowed 1 earned run because Tyler Rogers can't handle himself, and then you strand Jeff McNeil with a leadoff triple at third. That was their demise. That was a run that if that comes in, maybe the Mets win. Maybe have their largest comeback of the year. Maybe that's the momentum to help them win 3 out of 4 instead of losing 3 out of 4 against this team. I digress. Mets offense today. Lindor, 268 average, 795 OPS. Soto, 254 average, and 900 OPS. Nimmo, 264 average, 789 OPS. Nimmo had 6 extra base hits in the series, yet we don't care because the Mets lose 3 out of 4. Alonso, 0 for 269 average, 861. I wonder where Pete was today because clearly it wasn't at Citi Field. Jeff McNeil, 256 average, 799 OPS. Vientos, 244 average, 733 OPS. Beatty, 251 average, 744 OPS. Mullins, 224 average, 715 OPS. What a waste he is right now. Sanger, 179, 416. Marte, 280, 790. Terrence, 216, 609. A whole lot of nothing to yap about as a Mets fan right now. I got to be honest with you. Casey with the $10 haul. Thank you so much. If your name is McLean and Ton, it's been tragic. Holmes has been an excuse. No other starter does. Senga has been a pro. How long? Peterson has been around long enough. Benai IL or bullpen buddy, enough. I agree. Enough is enough. The Mets need to be proactive here. They cannot continue to sit on their hands. They need to be smart with their decisions because I think we can all agree the Mets have not been smart about a lot of their decision making throughout the course of the year. Between the Stearns moves that he made heading into the season, that in hindsight 2020 has come back to bite this team in the ass in more ways than one, paired with, again, so many things going wrong in the first half. I will not forget the Mets losing 15 of 18 games before the All-Star break. And the reason why I won't forget that is because none of us have forgotten that. That has been the story of the demise. Since Kodai Senga first went down with injury for this Mets team and Tyler Megill went down the same week, Griffin Canning ruptures his Achilles a week or so after. That was the internal demise. The Mets were not proactive enough and figuring out their immediate pitching woes, and because of that, we talked today on August 31st of a team that's just 9 games above 500. Yes, the hitting was abysmal, large portion of the season with runners in scoring position, and yes, they were nowhere to be seen today. But again, and I cannot emphasize this enough, when you have a starting staff that gives you no length and gives you no quality outside of their young, inexperienced starters, what do you expect on a nightly basis from this offense? They're not going to prove you wrong every single time. They don't have enough moxie inside of them to say, hey, we're going to go out and win games single-handedly every single night. They don't have that. The Mets have a lot of great weapons in their offense. There's a lot of things I like about their offense, but we have seen this continuation of rolling over and dying many times when they're facing early deficits. They didn't do that yesterday, and I appreciate that. But yesterday is then, today is now, and the future begins tomorrow, and we don't know what this future is going to be for this Mets team. What we do know is that the Mets have a 10-game gauntlet on the road for a club that's north of 10 games below 500. How can you confidently say, as a Mets fan, that this team is going to get right and fast, knowing that they have these kind of lows, knowing that you face a gauntlet of the Detroit Tigers, of the Cincinnati Reds, of the Philadelphia Phillies over the stretch? How can you say in confidence that this team is going to figure themselves out unless they make proper in-house decisions? Because the in-house decision so far for David Stearns, 2 up, and that has worked. We're up 2-0 between McClain and Jonathan, being as close to as advertised, if not above advertisement, when they have made their major league debuts and what they have done since then. Brandon Sproat, as I stated before, and I will say it again, has been nails for the past north of 10-plus starts now in AAA Syracuse, coming off of his best start, arguably, of his AAA tenure yesterday in Scranton against the Rail Riders. And even then, we still have to have this hot debate as to, does Brandon Sproat warrant the call-up? Should he be called up now? It's not a matter of if he should be called up. He needs to be called up now. Enough of the nonsense. Enough is enough with this Mets team. They have to be proactive. They have to do something. There is no more time to waste. It's as simple as that. Hyper Mario, thank you so much for the $5 holla. I really do appreciate that. Mario states the following: man, anyways, ignoring Senga's shit show, should I risk taking a slim chance at LCS game day or don't risk? Take a day off for last homestand. Which game? That's completely up to you, Mario, especially considering it's your B-day. That's your decision to make, my guy. I don't want to make that for you. So do whatever you think you're more comfortable with, but I will tell you this much: do not bank on the Mets to bring you happiness, because if there's one thing we have learned this season, they have been so Jekyll and Hyde that just when you think, okay, we're going to get a big game from the boys, you don't get a big game from the boys. You get the boys that decide to roll over and die instead. We need this Mets team to actually show the moxie, to show the flair, and to show that they give a rat's you-know-what for more than just a series at a time. Because what they did against the Philadelphia Phillies was so encouraging, so exciting, so much to be happy about. But even when you see that, even when you say that, it only takes you so far as a fan, because you know that these have been glaring woes and glaring problems that have plagued this Mets team throughout the vast majority of the season. The nice little spark they're getting now from Ton and Sproat is fantastic, but they need, from Ton and McClain is fantastic, but they need more. And yes, it sucks. It absolutely sucked to say that, yes, the Mets kind of need to rely on their young in-house options to get something going. They have to, because they don't have any other options to consider. That's what happens when you don't make big trades at the trade deadline, regardless of if it was justified or not. That's what happens when you decide not to give the kids a look in the first half or right after the trade deadline when it was proper and ample time to do so. Instead, David Stern said to himself, let's wait as long as we possibly can to call up our top pitching prospects and then see what they have. Whether it was calculated and we know it was or not, I do not agree with the decision-making as to why they have not been up here until the past couple weeks or so. There's little to nothing to justify. Miss me with the nonsense of club control. Miss me with the nonsense of rookie eligibility. I don't care about getting an extra draft pick if one of them wins an award next year. I don't care about losing a year of control if they pitch more than 50 innings. What I care about is winning in a win-now stage with Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, and Pete Alonso, who's a free agent at the end of the season. Yet instead, let's focus short and long-term like the schmucks that we continue to be, instead of focusing on what's right in front of our eyes. A Mets team that has all the talent in the world. It's just about putting it together, and we continue to not put it together. The glue pieces are falling. They're drying up. We need more Gorilla Glue, and I can't find it anywhere unless your name is Brandon Sproat. Thank you guys for the donations as you chime in live at a replay. I really do appreciate that. Casey, I'm going to get to that donation in just a second. I'm going to get to all this here in a second, guys. There's so many numbers I want to relay in regards to Senga, in regards to this rotation. You're going to want to throw up in your mouth as I relay them, but understand it's for the sole purpose of something needs to change there. So, guys, shout out to our amazing sponsor at SeatGeek. Again, make sure to utilize our promo code for WardyNYM. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase. Whether you want to utilize them for the NFL season right around the corner, whether you want to utilize them for MLB tickets like the Mets or others, they have you covered. Make sure to check it out. Link down below in the description. And everybody, final thing I'll say before we break it all down here, shout out to our amazing sponsor at Moo, the official trading platform of the New York Mets. Let's hear a quick word from them. Folks, Have you been seeing that big orange bowl that's making Mondays at Citi Field way more exciting? I'm talking about our amazing sponsor on the platform at Mumu. As the #1 Mets channel on YouTube, I absolutely love to break down stats, analysis, really getting into the nitty-gritty numbers, and that is why I love so much Mumu, because they do exactly that with that same analytical approach when it comes to investing. It's a trading platform with professional-grade tools and premium research that other companies usually charge a pretty hefty price for, all come for free when you sign up as a customer with Mumu. But folks, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And thanks to Mumu's partnership with our beloved New York Metropolitans, all Mumu customers can get free tickets to any and every Mets home game on a Monday throughout the course of the season. That's right, folks. Free baseball all season long for the greatest fan base in sports. Not to mention Mumu Millions. If the Mets pull off 100 wins this season, one lucky Mumu customer is going to come out winning $1 million. And what's nuts about this is that Mumu has already given away $10,000 when the Mets hit first 25 wins this season, as well as $20,000 when they hit the 50-win mark. And when the Mets inevitably hit 75 wins, they're giving away $30,000. But as much as they love baseball, Mumu's #1 priority is jump-starting your investing journey, which is why they're giving the WardyNYM community up to $1,000 in NVIDIA stock just for making a qualified deposit and becoming a Mumu customer. So folks, what are you waiting for? Head to start.mumu.com/Wardy, scan the QR code, or click the link in the description to join the Mumu community. Now, let's get back to our Mets. All right, guys, let's continue our discussion here, and let's get into the following numbers I need to relay, okay? To give you a greater grasp, in case you guys haven't seen it enough with the eye test, let me enlighten you as to how bad things have been for this Mets rotation, okay? And let's start with the following. I think this is a perfect Kickstarter for the conversation here. Let me just pull it up. All right, guys, Mets starters in the month of August are as follows. Jonathan, a 1.8 ERA. Noah McLean, a 0.89 ERA. Clay Holmes, a 4.32 ERA. Sean Manaea, a 7.13 ERA. And mind you, I say this knowing that ERA is not the end-all be-all for pitchers. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and act like that it's the end-all be-all now. It isn't. Expected numbers are very important, but still listen to the following. A 7.13 ERA for Sean Manaea, and a 5.86 ERA for Kodai Senga, and a 6.68 ERA there for David Peterson. So, what do we see, everybody? We see a cultivation of Mets starters, veterans not getting the job done. The youngsters are most certainly getting the job done. But okay, the kids are getting the job done. So what are they going to do now? They have the pieces. They have the youth movement. And for the counter to say, oh, Brandon Sproat, he's not that good enough. Why would you even consider calling up Brandon Sproat? And my answer to that, and I think you guys can all agree this is, what else do you have to lose? It's not as much about Brandon Sproat clearly being this most fantastic dominant option for this Mets team as it is also the simple fact that the Mets don't have better options. When you have batting practice every fourth or fifth day out there, that being in Kodai Senga, when you have Sean Manaea who can't handle more than one turn in the order or so, when you have Clay Holmes who's a 5 and dive, yeah, I'm going to go on a limb and say that your options are not looking great. You have to go bottom barrel. And Brandon Sproat is not bottom barrel. He's a guy with a 1.74 ERA over his past 10 starts in AAA Syracuse. He's touching 99 to 100 plus on the gun. He has been the long-believed starter to actually make the biggest jump to the major league level going back to the beginning of last season. Yeah, that has quickly changed as guys like Noah McLean and Jonathan have blossomed to the degree that they have. But the simple point here, everybody, is that it's less about if Brandon Sproat is going to be the guy or not versus you have nothing to lose now. You have to see if he can be the guy. The same way that you called up Jonathan and he showed you in real time that in his first ever career start that he can be a guy that you lean on. The same way that Noah McLean has shown in 3 starts that he's not only a guy the Mets can lean on, but he quite literally looks like the Mets' best starting option. He looks like our ace. He looks like what Kodai Senga couldn't even get close to mounting to be since coming back from injury. So again, say what you will about the criticisms or maybe saying to yourself, I don't love the idea of considering the kids. Okay, then you let me know what's a better idea. If you guys can find one, enlighten me by all means. Outside of maybe considering someone that's being cut via the waiver wire because teams are obviously cutting guys as they're making the roster crunch with the rosters expanding tomorrow. We're seeing a lot of guys in the waiver wire right now that are rental pieces from, bottom feeder teams but are still solid players. Could the Mets consider some of those guys? Sure, but I think going to be needle movers for you? No, they more than likely are not going to be. They're probably going to fall in the same, if not similar, category to that being of what we have seen all year long of just guys that are more retreads that are basically just going to be short-term options and nothing long-term. So, between Noah McLean, Jonathan, and Brandon Sproat, the Mets have literally nothing, and I mean nothing, to lose from finally giving them all ample opportunity. Let me get this set up here with my camera because we just went out of focus for a second. I apologize for that, everybody. Let's get this going, then we're going to continue on the live show. I got a lot to say because I want to talk now also not only some more numbers, but also what the Mets are likely going to do for their roster that we're going to find out officially tomorrow. And we will break down a video on the platform once that becomes officially announced as well. Come on, get focused here. Hold on, everybody. I'm just trying to focus my camera. Sometimes it loves to go out of focus on me if I don't, like, stare into it for, like, mad long. Come on. Come on. Come on, you schmuck. Trying to break down Mets baseball. You're not letting me break down Mets baseball right now. Let me do it. They also realize I probably have the wrong score taker on the bottom. That's okay. That was from yesterday's game. It's not like it matters. Mets got curb stomp worse today than they did yesterday. All right, there we go. As we hop back over here, how we feeling? Pat, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Really do. That's the one positive. I appreciate everyone with the birthday wishes from yesterday. Mets decided to step up on my birthday weekend and lose 3 out of 4 against the Miami Marlins. So clearly, all my years of covering this team on a daily, nightly basis means nothing to them because I get no return on investment whatsoever. I might get an ROI in the sense of you guys providing donations and ads and all that stuff, and sponsors are amazing. But when it comes from the team itself, they once again fall short. Can't say I'm surprised. Pat, thank you so much for the donation, buddy. Love you. Really do appreciate that. Now, we talked about those numbers I just relayed. Kodai Senga has a 5.9 ERA since returning from injury. Kind of horrendous. The Mets, as we've known, but let me reiterate, since June 13th of this season, folks, their starters have pitched the fewest amount of innings in Major League Baseball, and their bullpen has pitched the second most. That's not a recipe for success. That's a recipe for failure. And this is why it's been so great to see guys like Ton and McLean finally break away from what has been a terrible norm in this rotation for months on end this year. But it can't stop there. They shouldn't call up, if they don't call up Sproat, they shouldn't call up anybody. I agree, because Sproat is without question the top option to consider now for a starting option. It is not Justin Hageman. It is not Brandon Woodell, who just pitched today. It is not Chris Davinsky, and I know you guys are saying in the chat, that's what we need more of, sarcastically. Yeah, it's terrible, because again, those guys are far from needle movers. Those guys are going to move you lateral at best. You might get a day like today where Brandon Woodell eats 4+ innings for you. That's awesome. Appreciate that from him. But that also means nothing at the same time. That's not going to take you far. What will take this Mets team far is a spark that they haven't had yet. And that spark has consisted of McLean, Ton, and now hopefully here sooner than later, as soon as tomorrow, hopefully we're going to see the call and one Brandon Sproat. So now, guys, let's talk about rosters are expanding tomorrow, right? The Mets are going to be making a roster change. So what are they going to do by adding a position player, a pitcher, and one more? Because Ronnie Mauricio's ass is 1,000% getting sent down. Not a matter of if, just a matter of when. So let's start from the top. Position player. Who is the most obvious position player the Mets should call up with the rosters expanding? And the simple answer to that is, barring changes right now, it's Luis Angel Acuna. Acuna provides way too much with his base running and his defense alone, not for him to be the immediate consideration. He also knows what it takes to handle the major league level. Even though he's been sporadic, the Mets aren't banking on him to be anything else other than a pinch runner later in the ball game, maybe getting a one-off start here or there in the infield, but that's about that. He provides more for you than Ronnie Mauricio right now, because the Mets haven't even utilized Ronnie for his base running ability all that much, nor have they utilized him much in game situations at all. So while Jesse Winker and Jose Siri continue their rehab, and Siri had himself, I believe, a broken bat single turn double today or something along those lines in his rehab, while we await for those guys to return this Mets team, and they will return. Those are two bats that will be with this Mets team more than likely before the season ends. It's just a matter of when they're officially done with their rehab. In the meantime, Acuna will be the guy the Mets first consider. Pitching wise, obviously, Brandon Sproat goes without saying, needs to be considered. I don't care that he just started yesterday. You need to have this man up with the team ASAP. Like, how much longer are you going to wait here? As long as he's playoff eligible, as long as you have Sproat in this rotation for the next turn in the order, that's all I care about. With this sixth man, again, Senga's not slated to pitch again until Sunday. Kodai Senga cannot pitch in this Mets rotation on Sunday. And the frustrating thing is, I think we're all going to hear, in the case of Kodai Senga, is that we're going to find out that Kodai Senga is going to be utilized by having a spot starter for him. It's going to be the Frankie Montas nonsense 2.0. Watch it happen. We just saw Carlos Mendoza speak to the media postgame today. I just read it myself, saying how, this is fluid. We have to figure out, we have to have a discussion as to what we're going to do with Kodai. We have to get him right. But here's the thing. Why do I feel like instead of getting him right by putting him on a phantom IL or just moving him, deferring him to the bullpen entirely right now, the Mets obviously have too much value in Senga, so they are going to do their best to try to get himself figured out before it's too late. The problem, though, is that Senga continues to cost this Mets team games single-handedly every single time out there for the past month and a half. The Mets only have a month left of baseball, so they really have no wiggle room. And to make matters even worse, not that it's a big deal for a guy that's been batting practice all year, but you guys know how Walker Buehler would have been maybe a nice option for this Mets bullpen to consider. Well, Walker Buehler just signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. So after the Phillies lose Zach Wheeler for the remainder of the year in their rotation, they will defer to Walker Buehler and Taijuan Walker, I'm sure, to flip-flop in that final rotation spot, barring changes. Two guys who have been batting practice, but needless to say, the Phillies add another arm that has not only veteran experience, that's championship experience, as he won the World Series against the Yankees last year, and closed the door down there that we saw at Yankee Stadium itself. So yes, in case you guys are wondering, Walker Buehler now is in fact a Philadelphia Philly, and the Phillies now have Buehler. They have David Robertson, who the Mets actually did a good job on beating up on others. I don't say this in great fear of the Philadelphia Phillies, as I say it just for the sake of relaying the news that actually just happened live in real time. Stearns had the chance to sign Buehler before the Phillies. He did, but here's the thing, though. Buehler is not a better rotation option than Kodai Senga. He has had a dog water year all year round. If the Mets defer to Walker Buehler as their starter option, it would be silly because you're banking on a lot of inconsistencies there to get the job done right. So when you look at Buehler, I'm curious if the Phillies are going to utilize him as a reliever or if he's going to be true in that rotation the way that we've seen him utilized for most part of the year with the Boston Red Sox. If he's utilized as a reliever and he's nails, I'll be pissed because that's the one role where I think he still could have thrived potentially for the Mets or other teams that were considering someone like him. Buehler is not a much better option than Senga right now. He's not. That's how pardon my French, kiddos, earmuffs. Buehler has been dog shit. He has not been good. His K to walk ratio is right at 2. He's not even averaging 7 strikeouts per 9 as he's averaging over 4 walks per 9 this season. His baseline ERA is pushing north of 6. His expected numbers are horrendous. Buehler has not been a good pitcher for a year and a half, 2 years now, really since he had that full injury that he sustained and that had him out for like all of 2023 or so, whether it was Tommy John or whatever with the Dodgers. He has not been that same guy. He was nails in limited sample size with the adrenaline flowing against a sorry Yankees lineup that had no clue how to handle the Dodgers in 5 or so games in the World Series. With that exception, Buehler has provided little to nothing to say, okay, he's a guy that can go out and perform. He's a playoff performer. He has been, but will he be that down the stretch for this Philadelphia Phillies team? We'll just have to wait and see. So that's what the Phillies just did there in adding Walker Buehler. We'll see if the Mets get a chance to beat up on his ass as soon as that series starts between the two teams for that 4-game set beginning September 8th of this upcoming month, beginning tomorrow, guys. But so we talked about Luis Angel Acuna, Brandon Sproat. Those are two the obvious call-ups. But okay, who are other guys that the Mets should consider, especially with Ronnie Mauricio being sent down? Because here's what I would say. Knowing that Jose Siri and Jesse Winker are still a little bit of ways away, I will not be shocked if the Mets actually utilize that roster spot where Ronnie Mauricio gains sent down for one being in Francisco Alvarez. Let's not forget this, everybody. Alvarez has a role on this team right now, and if the Mets want to roll with a 3-catching tandem, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility unless they really feel comfortable that he can catch. Alvarez is going to be back with this team soon. He's catching today for AAA Syracuse after him batting in DH yesterday and Scranton against the Rail Riders. He did not record a hit, but still encouraging to see him out there. The Mets offense, for the most part, outside of like one run, got nothing going. Brandon Sproat carved up the Yankees affiliate, and that was about that. So Alvarez, you guys can anticipate, will be returning to this Mets team soon. It does appear that's going to happen as soon as this week. It's just a matter of when exactly that day is going to be. So Alvarez, you can expect back up with this Mets team sooner rather than later, barring changes. Mauricio will likely be a corresponding move there. Acuna will likely be getting the call up. Pitching-wise, it needs to be Brandon Sproat. Outside of Brandon Sproat, who are other pitchers that we could see the Mets consider over this stretch of play, right? Especially innings eaters. Austin Warren is a name that comes to mind right away of a guy that can eat multiple innings for you, of quality potentially there in the bullpen, where he does a very rock-solid job in doing so. You can consider, obviously, going back to Jose Castillo if he clears waivers and there isn't a problem there. You can consider back with Chris Davinsky if you really want to, as, again, a stopgap option. But between Brandon Sproat and others, there's only one other arm that I think the Mets should at minimum consider now, and that is Dylan Ross. Dylan Ross has just over a 2 ERA in AAA Syracuse for the Mets this year. He has been nails for what feels like all season long, and the Mets are going to consider anyone else of inexperience outside of Brandon Sproat to help this pitching staff now, not just for the rotation, but for the bullpen as well. I would make the rightful argument that Dylan Ross falls in that category as well, and I see some of you guys talking about him in the chat as well, because I 100% agree with you. I think that is one of the final missing pieces of inexperienced players the Mets can consider. I'm not saying it's a lock that they will, but I'm just saying should the Mets call him up at some point in the next couple weeks, don't be surprised that they do, because Dylan Ross has some nasty stuff and can be added at any point in this Mets bullpen. So as we get into tomorrow, everybody, as the Mets get set for these expanded rosters, what do we have to bear in mind? The Mets are going to be looking for speed and Luis Angel Acuna. Could they potentially be looking for oomph off the bench that maybe gives them more than Ronnie Mauricio and a Jared Young? It's something to consider, as Jared Young has had a brilliant year for AAA Syracuse. He's having just under 1,000 OPS. He's looked awesome in AAA this year, but we know that Jared Young at the major league level isn't necessarily going to give you all that much to be happy or satisfied about. It's kind of slim pickings. It's very few and far in between. He's not much of a needle mover there. The Mets really don't have many bats, if at all, that are needle movers currently in the minor leagues. The only exception to that is Jesse Winker, Jose Siri, who are on their rehab stints, and Carson Bench and Jet Williams. Carson Bench and Jet Williams are the two guys to consider, but one, Jet is still a slow roll and getting adjusted now to the AAA level. Carson Bench has been brilliant, but I will be hard-pressed to see the Mets go the lengths to call up a Carson Bench who has yet to make his major league debut, and knowing that the Mets are getting more in-house options for the outfield. Maybe they say to themselves Cedric Mullins has not been good enough, and Tyrone Taylor has been too inconsistent enough to warrant them as their only outfield options. Maybe then and only then is why they consider a Carson Bench. Maybe they really get desperate and crazy. We'll have to wait and see. I love Bench. I think he could impact this Mets team as soon as now, but I understand the counter as to why we're probably getting a little bit ahead of ourselves before making that kind of decision. Then you say to yourself, Jet Williams. Jet, who was brilliant all year long in AA for the Rumble Ponies, has yet to really get fully acclimated and comfortable at the AAA level. He has yet to provide such numbers to, I think, warrant the call-up for him to the major league level. And on top of it, Jet, while he's a speed demon, a guy that I think could be a Swiss Army knife for this Mets team, no doubt about it. 100% could be a Swiss Army knife for them as a Luis Angel Acuna replacement, but that's to the extent of what I think Jet Williams would be. I don't think you would be getting much more from Jet Williams outside of being a Luis Angel Acuna kind of replacement on the roster. A guy that can eat some innings for you in the infield later in the ballgame if you want him to. A speed demon on the base pass to try to steal runs. But again, that even itself feels like it's going to be short-lived with the emergence of Jose Siri, who at minimum is an unbelievably valuable base runner, can be a very valuable defender for you, and the bat, we know it's very Jekyll and Hyde. Jesse Winker, not a guy that's going to be playing the outfield again, but a guy that, as long as his rehab is going decent, is a guy that can be utilized off the bench and in certain platoon DH situations. So the Mets have plenty of decisions to make from now up until tomorrow with the rosters expand, but do not be surprised with all the following players that I just relayed your way to see them considered in conversation. Obviously, it can still be players that we did not talk about yet. It can be a wait and see as to see who are they exactly going to rely on and defer to. That's different from the norm of the conversation that we're currently having. And the one name that I'm actually really glad that you brought up, Scuba, because he tends to just leave my mind. Not that I'm purposely ignoring him, but it's easy to ignore a guy that has been with the team in months. And that's Tyler Megill. When we talk about expanding the rosters, Tyler Megill is expected to have one more rehab start, which I find interesting. Because a week plus ago or so, there was reporting that the Mets really didn't even feel the need to throw Megill in another rehab. But he also got rocked in his previous one, so that's probably what's warranting it. The Mets are going to drag on the rehab as long as they can for Tyler Megill. Once he's done with his next and final rehab assignment, then they will make the decision from there. They will either bring him up as, again, another arm to consider in the rotation and or bullpen. And I do think Megill still does have value to a degree, especially if you utilize him right as a reliever. I think Megill has all the potential to be a nasty reliever for this Mets team. He just has not been that to this point. He's been brilliant in his first, second turn in the order in early goings of the season in the rotation, and then when you get to that third turn, becomes batting practice. Is not enough, cannot provide you length. And especially after you see a team like the Phillies add a guy like Walker Buehler, I think Walker Buehler will fall in that kind of category where he can be utilized as either a starter, a reliever, kind of whatever role they want to find themselves throwing him in. So the Mets version of that would be a Tyler Megill again, and then obviously Brandon Sproat if they really want to go down that route. But if there's anything that we learned from Brandon Sproat getting another full start for Syracuse yesterday, is that the Mets are clearly, contrary to what the initial belief was, and I will put my hand up by saying I apologize for that, we had all indication that Sproat was a guy that was going to be maybe utilized more in a reliever role, but as of now, it's hard pressed to see that. until he gets the call and is utilized as a reliever because he just went 7 strong, scoreless, his best outing yet, you could rightfully argue, in Syracuse. And as David Stern stated to John Heyman and Joel Sherman of the New York Post and their The Show podcast over the past week or so, he did state that it was overblown about Sproat being utilized as a reliever. It was kind of a one-off situation because they want to make sure that all their starters can be able to handle a circumstance where they have a spot starter come in for them, and that was a circumstance then. So should that hold true, Brandon Sproat will be utilized more as a starter than anything else for this Mets club. But when we evaluate the configuration of this rotation right now, guys, it's not good. It is not good at all. And when you look at if the wild card started tomorrow and the Mets are getting set for the Dodgers or the Phillies, whoever it may be, you can't say that the Mets have more reliable options than Jonathan and and Noah McLean right now. They really don't. You could say, listen, David Pearson hasn't been good lately, but he's been nails for such a large portion of the year. Don't give up on him now. Okay, but then what if he gets rocked right away? Then what do you say to yourself? We should have focused on what he wasn't doing the past month and a half plus, right? It's a results-oriented business. And what the results tell you is that the kids are the ones the Mets have to rely on. Whether we like it or not, whether we think it's justified or not, this is the circumstance the Mets have unfortunately fallen in now, and they have themselves to blame. When you don't hit a liquid runners in scoring position for the entire month of summer, up until now the month of August, when you decide to be incoherent when it comes to making proper decisions with your pitching staff in the first half, when there was endless and justified reasons to do so, you find yourself now in the hole that you find yourself in. And as I go back to it, and I will say it again, this Mets team has been horrendous on the road this year. Francisco Lindor has been horrendous on the road this year. He has one of the most drastic home and away splits out of any Mets batter. The only other Mets batter that has drastic home and away splits to a similar degree of Francisco Lindor is, in fact, Brett Baty. Brett Baty is the one other man who's thrived at home big time, but on the road has been a shell of himself. That's a problem when you consider Brett Baty has been one of the most consistent hitters in the Mets lineup over the past calendar month, batting right around 350 to 360. You have a guy like Juan Soto who's been nails, we know that. You have a guy like Lindor who's been nails at home, but on the road, not so much. Lindor has an OPS closer to 600 than he does having, anything else of being positive about when you look at the splits from offense to defense there on the road versus at home. Very contrasting. And then when you look at the pitching again, how many times does this pitching come back to bite this Mets team in the you-know-what this year? How many times has this team, instead of doing what they're supposed to by giving you at least 6 solid innings, they roll over in 4.1 to 5 innings? And then your bullpen's overly taxed. Ryan Stanek's being utilized when no one wants him. The fact that Stanek is even in the organization right now is kind of baffling to me. I get it, he's a playoff performer, but he has really hurt this Mets team in a lot of ways on the pitching end. It's hard to justify how much longer you're going to keep him in this Mets bullpen. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's DFA'd before the season ends in itself. The Mets are just really not at all in good standing and instill confidence again as a fan. Right after they had us all rallied right back, just like Al Pacino there, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. That held true after the Mets swept this Philadelphia Phillies team. But again, they don't know consistency, but smacked them across the face. And until they figure out something in that regard, you can't expect them to do anything of consistency. Again, they win a series, that's great, but then they're going to go ahead and lose 3 out of 4 against the Marlins like they did today. It's disgusting. Tingo Suchudahala, no way anyone has faith in this team anymore. It's really hard to. Again, the only way we have faith is if they consistently prove us that we should have faith. They have not done that since the first half of the season. And when I say first half, it's really more of the first month and a half or so of the year. Wardy and other Mets podcasters would actually win games for us considering they hold nothing back. Yeah, I would lean into a pitch every time I could, doing my best Michael Conforto impression until I get my ass thrown out or they just allow it because the umpires are incompetent. I would go the lengths to do that. I would sacrifice myself for this Mets team because how desperate I am to see them win anything of significance, right? The fact that we got a taste of the NLCS last year has me wanting that again. And the fact that the Mets right now are closer to be a team that's going to be bounced out of the first round of playoffs than they are doing anything else is very frustrating to say. Very frustrating. And, going back to just even when we talk about the moment that Mark Vientos had earlier in this ball game when he got, hit a little up and in by Sandy and had a little disgruntlement about that. That wasn't a great example of the Mets kind of in dire need of just trying to get a spark. I don't know what is. That felt so forced. It did not feel genuine at all. Even if it was, it didn't feel that way from what we saw publicly watching the TV. It just feels like, again, the Mets are trying to find any and every way to get something working right now, and they continue to take 10 steps back after finally taking 1 or 2 steps forward as they did in the previous series against the Philadelphia Phillies. And the Phillies did just sign Walker Patrick. Thank you for the donation. Yep, I'm aware of that. And like I said, we'll see if that's going to work out for them or not. He's been dog water all year long. The Phillies made that signing in large part because of the fact that Zach Wheeler's out for the year and might be out for the rest of his career. So they're going to want more starter depth there. I don't blame them, and I don't hate the idea of the Mets adding starting depth either, but Buehler's been so bad that we're going to just have to see if he really turns things around with the Phillies. And if he does, it would be very fitting if he does against the Mets in that 4-game set, because Walker will more than likely pitch at least one of those games against the Mets once we get there in Philadelphia not long from now. I'm so glad I missed this game, says Dano. Next year, I want none of the starters that started the season starting next year. Well, the good news, at least, is that the Mets have an abundance of in-house options with their starters. So even if you don't love Kodai Senga, David Pearson, Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, who are all under contract for next season, I can't imagine that they will all be back, however. The Mets have Christian Scott, Jonathan, Noah McLean, Brandon Sproat as in-house options to consider. So that alone, the Mets, out of young right-handers, currently have 4 out of a normal 5 rotation to consider for next season. So they're in great standing. The Mets actually have 9 starters as is under contract, ready to compete for a rotation spot next spring. They also have at least 4, if not 5 starters that are going to skyrocket to AAA Syracuse next year. That being in guys like Will Watson, Zach Thornton, Jonathan Santucci, RJ Gordon. The list goes on and on. Jack Weniger. They have a lot of options, a lot of quality starting pitching options. I am not actually concerned long-term at all for this Mets team rotation-wise, but I'm concerned in the interim, because in the interim is the veterans. It's the guys who are not really in-house options. It's the guys that we spent money on over the past couple years, and they're showing in real time how much they're not worth even close to the fraction of the millions that they find themselves making on a year-by-year basis. James with the $2 haul. Thank you so much for that, James. What is worse, dog water or hot dog water? They're both bad, but take your pick. Either one's fine with me, James. Thank you for the donation. Do I think they're going to call a bench? No. I don't think they're going to rush to call a bench. I think if they call bench, it's another sign of desperation by this Mets team. That's what it is. It's a sign of desperation because you don't like at all what you're getting in Cedric Mullins. You don't like enough of what you're getting there in Tyrone Taylor. That's what the decision would be. And the Mets play tomorrow. Wait, do the Mets play tomorrow at 1:10? Please don't tell me the Mets play tomorrow. Oh my God. Why do the Mets? The Mets playing a 1 o'clock day game on the holiday. I hate it with a passion. I hate it so much with a passion. To begin your road trip in a day game, this sounds horrendous for this team. And then they have the day game again on Wednesday. I appreciate the off day on Thursday. This team is going to need it. But my God, these day games are horrendous. They're so bad. They're so bad. The Mets on day games are such a close to a lock of just rolling over. They just, especially on Sundays, like today, regardless of what the Mets did or didn't do the past 3-4 days, they roll over all the time on Sunday day games. I actually can't remember. Let's actually double check now. When was the last time the Mets won a Sunday day game, everybody? Let's do this together, class, okay? Let's go ahead and take a look. The last time the Mets won a Sunday day game, emphasis on day, as they did win on Sunday night on ESPN's broadcast for the Little League World Classic against Seattle on the 17th. However, the last time the Mets won a Sunday day game was in San Fran on the 27th of July. But my problem with that is, I don't know if that was like a 1-10 game or that was like a 4-10 game because they were in San Fran. So wouldn't that have been at least a 4-10 game on the East Coast? We'll give it them. Prior to that was actually the Mets winning the series finale against the Reds after losing the series 2 out of 3 to them on July 20th. So again, it's been a calendar month since the Mets have won a Sunday day game. Outside of that, the Mets have little Sunday day games to be proud of. They previous from there, the last time they won a Sunday day game was they blew out the Colorado Rockies in Colorado on June 8th. Before that, they won the series finale against the Dodgers at the end of May. And then it was kind of, solid winning because, again, the Mets were actually showing up versus rolling over and dying constantly. Well, audio's pretty low. Noted. Thank you so much for relaying that, my guy. Not sure why that. Hold on. Check 1. Check 2. Let's see why the audio's low here. Check 1. Check 2. Check 3. Check 4. Check 5. Check 6. Check 7. Check 1. Check 2. Check 3. Hold on. Check 1. Check 2. Check 3. Check 4. Check 5. Check 6. Check 7. Check 8. Check 9. Check 1. Interesting. It's low. I agree with you. The audio's low. I don't know what happened there. I will bear that in mind, though, going forward, though. Thank you guys for relaying. My apologies on the audio being low. I'm glad it's at least low, though, and not causing much of an issue otherwise, but I apologize for that. just tag me in something on Twitter. I'll make sure to check it out right now. Apologies again for the low audio, guys. Trying to troubleshoot this as we speak. Usually troubleshooting during the live show is not the smartest idea, but we're going to try to go ahead and do it. Just lower than normal? Good to know. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, let's see what this tweet is, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Just listen to these numbers for a second, guys. Just listen for a second, please. Mets offensive stats in the month of August. A 289 batting average, a 366 on base, 53 home runs, 176 runs scored, 29 stolen bags. Yet you think the pitching isn't the clear problem with this team right now? Let me enlighten you. The pitching is the reason why the Mets are 11-17 over that stretch. 11-17. Wow. So Brandon Sproat, guys, whether he gets the call tomorrow or later in the week, getting set for when he's actually set to toe the rubber, maybe next weekend, he's going to be up with this team. But as Joe DeMayo tweeted out actually not long ago, and I agree with him on, he said, nobody asked me about my September call-ups would be Dylan Ross and Luis Angel Acuna. I agree with him. I think Acuna and Ross would make a lot of sense for this team. And then, again, Mauricio gets sent down with a guy like Siri and or Winker are available. And then later in the week when Sproat can be called up as long as he's playoff eligible, that's not a problem too. I don't mind if Sproat isn't called up for a couple days. He just pitched yesterday. He ain't going to pitch for the Mets tomorrow or the days after that. But as long as Sproat is up and is playoff eligible and gets in the next turn in this Mets rotation, that's all I care about. So you guys, let me know your thoughts about that as to what you guys think is going to be the immediate call-ups for this Mets team on the rotation front, on the position player front, and everything in between. But having said that, I think that this is a perfect stopping point for us to wrap up the live show now. I'm just going to double check to make sure that I did not miss any other key statistic before we get out of here. So again, thank you guys for hitting that like and subscribe on. I really do appreciate it. And let's get in here and go on from there. Yeah, I think I got everything that I need to see. So again, thank you guys to everyone that chimed in live on a replay for this one. We will be back live either later on tonight or tomorrow. We will obviously have post-game content immediately after win, lose, or draw against the Detroit Tigers. I would ideally like to get a video that'll drop early tomorrow, but at the same time, knowing that the Mets have a day game is going to kind of make that a little bit more difficult. I may try, but the downside with dropping a video in the AM when you have a day game is unfortunately the reality that it gets buried right away by the post-game show. So regardless of what those topics are, the algorithm just doesn't hit it a lot of the times. So whether you get a video and a live stream from me tomorrow or just a live stream, you guys will get more. And yeah, we play Charlie Moore tomorrow, and Shamanaya goes for us. So what do you do? We'll see how that goes. Morden's going to carve us up somehow, some way. Shamanaya probably won't go beyond 4.2 innings, and that'll do it for another frustrating loss this time in Detroit. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the bats break out. I hope Shamanaya dominates, and I hope we can talk tomorrow about finally getting some consistency in this rotation to not be as reliant on the young guns the way the Mets most certainly are now. Thank you guys again for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you all in the next one. As always, no matter what, folks,